Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Chad Calek, and welcome back to the In a Crowded Room podcast for episode number 33, in which we are going to talk about the Neverland documentary. I didn't want to watch this movie. I did not want to watch this documentary. I had heard a lot about it. It just seemed like a really, really dark film. But I eventually did watch it, and it was as disturbing as I thought it would be. If you don't know what this is about, it is the story of two men, one named Wade Robson and one named James Safechuck, that were once Michael Jackson's best friends, I guess you can say, as children, in which Michael Jackson took these two young men around the world with their parents, and they performed on stage with him, traveled around chartered jets, go on vacations, and just lived the life. And eventually a lot of charges came against Michael Jackson for child molestation. And oddly enough, these two gentlemen actually went to court for him and said, no, Michael would never do anything like this. He never did anything like this. He just loves children. He never had a childhood of his own, so he enjoys spending time with children and giving back to children. These people are just trying to use him for his money. In which Michael Jackson won the federal case against him from multiple parents. And he also settled out of court on the civil case for an undisclosed amount of money to make a lot of these cases go away. But many people believe that that was really just an admission of guilt. Now, years later, after Michael Jackson has passed away, Robson and Safechuck, these two gentlemen, have now come forward to say, we were pretty much brainwashed. We were competing for the affection and the love of Michael Jackson. And that as children, we were his lovers. And these two guys, I should say, they paint a really, really, really disturbing, really graphic picture as to who Michael Jackson was. Now, Michael's not around, obviously, to defend himself, which if you are of the skeptical minded and want to play devil's advocate, there's an argument there. Why didn't these young men step forward when Michael was alive? And the obvious argument is exactly what they said, that they were pretty much brainwashed as a child, and that Michael Jackson was everything to them, to the point that they associated their own self-worth to whether or not they had a burgeoning relationship with Michael. And according to their statements, about every year Michael would have a new young 9, 10, 11, 12, as young as 7-year-old boy that would travel with him. And the boys of his past were left competing to try to be that person in Michael's life that was supposedly special to him. Now, Michael Jackson built this Neverland Ranch on his property, which was this massive, exactly what it sounds like. It was a theme park. It was cotton candy and rides and movie theaters and all this stuff. And he would hire a full staff to like run these theme parks, and he would bring children there. And on one hand, it's like, wow, what a nice, cool thing to do for kids. But where it got weird is when he would have these stayovers, these sleepovers where, there'd be multiple kids that would be in his bedroom spending the night with him. And that's supposedly when a lot of these events would happen with these children. But what I found the most disturbing about the documentary was the attitude of the parents of these children, and now these grown men. The willingness to allow Michael Jackson to have alone time with children, spending the night in his hotel room, in his bedroom. This was above board. I mean, obviously they couldn't lock the parents down and steal the children. I mean, the parents were openly admitting to allowing Michael Jackson to have this access. And they were benefiting because they were living the high life. They were traveling the world by his side, in which Michael Jackson was taking care of their life, their bills. And in one instance, he bought, a house for one of these guys. And he was just giving this incredible life to the parents, who in return were allowing Michael Jackson what he wanted, which was to spend time alone without the parents. At one point, there's a really shocking part of the documentary that just blew my fucking mind, in which this mother is talking about, Wade Robson's mother is talking about how Michael Jackson, I believe it was Robson. If I'm wrong, I apologize, and it was Safechuck. But regardless, they were saying that Michael Jackson came and said, I would like your child for a year without you being around. I would just like to take your child for a year. And it'll be amazing for his career. And I'm going to make him a star. And I'm going to foster everything that he wants to do and he wants to be. And I just think it would be great for his independence. But I just want him without you around. And the mother's response blew my mind, because she just said, I told Michael there's just no way that you can have him for a year. She said, we can share him. That'll be okay. But there's just no way you can just have him. We're going to have to share. And it just hit me, man. It's like, that's what these children were to these parents. They were commodities. They were things they could negotiate with Michael, if you are to believe their stories. Now, what's hard to wrap your mind around when watching this documentary is that if this stuff is true, then Michael Jackson was, I guess, one of two things: an absolute Luciferian monster of the most disturbing order. I mean, we're talking a monster. Or you would have to believe that he is extremely mentally ill. Which there's obvious reasons that you could argue this. From his physical appearance to just an overall bizarre way of life. Traveling the world with 8, 9, 10-year-old boys in tow goes beyond the border of just saying, I wish I had a childhood and I really want to help children. If you want to help children, you don't have to pick one every year to spend the night in your hotel room or in your bedroom or to come live with you. You don't have to do any of that. Michael Jackson was arguably the most popular human being since Jesus Christ. He had more money than, he knew what to do with. And yes, he did give to tons of charities, and there's all kinds of stuff he could have done even further to help massive amounts of children. And again, he did. There's all kinds of examples of this. But one has to wonder, was he doing that so that he could live, the lifestyle that he wanted to live in the light of day? Is he grooming the public, so to speak? If you give enough money to child charities, and if you help enough children that you're not connected to, can you now walk around in public with an open relationship with a child in broad daylight without anybody saying anything? And for a long time, the answer was yes. And the weird thing was, I don't remember this. I was a huge Michael Jackson fan, like I'm sure so many of you were. I was actually Michael Jackson for a Halloween once. I had the Thriller jacket, all that stuff. I swear to God. And what's really strange is my Michael Jackson fandom started with the Thriller album and carried on through the Bad album. So it was somewhat short-lived, but through that time period, I don't remember this footage and these videos of him, with young boys in tow and a new, I guess according to these children and these men, new child lovers that were in tow. What I remember is that he was friends with Macaulay Culkin, who has gone to bat for him many times and said, no, nothing ever happened, which doesn't mean that something didn't happen with somebody else. And I remember that he was oddly friends with Corey Feldman. That's what I remember. So it was weird when watching this documentary of seeing all this footage of him with these other young boys that he was traveling with. And when you hear these videos and these recordings of him back in the day, and you learn that it's documented that he was going to the houses of these children while the parent is there and spending the night at their house. And then you see these faxes that he's sending about, I love you so much and I miss you so much. And they were like the type of love letters that you would share like in junior high, If you haven't seen this film yet, I mean this, Michael Jackson, while on tour and away from these two guys, was sending faxes that were handwritten love letters. And the parents looked the other way because they were benefiting. And that's what I found the most disturbing about this documentary. I don't understand. The first time I held my daughter in my hands, I don't have words for it. Like, it changed. Yeah. See, I just get emotional. I think about it. It just changes everything. You feel this overwhelming, just immense need to protect. That you realize how badly this child needs you to be something special, something reliable, something dependable, something honest. something that will always be there for them no matter what, something that will never let another person on planet Earth hurt them. So when I watch these parents lying to themselves and just making up excuses and reasons as to why, Michael was just so nice, and I just never thought that it could be possible that he could do this to my child, despite the fact that he is sending me away for a week and telling me that he'll take care of my child after only knowing him for 5 hours. I mean, it's just crazy stories. When it comes to Robson and Safechuck, the James Safechuck, he really, to me, came off as very believable. He appears to have PTSD. He appears to be really, really messed up from all of that. And from the interviews of his former girlfriends and other people in his life, and the road that he took, and the drug addiction that followed in his life, I mean, you could see this guy went through something, and he came out the other end very, very messed up. With Wade Robson, I don't want to say that I don't believe him. There was just something inside me, something that maybe questioned him a little bit. And it might be just that he's a performer. And I remember this guy. He had a show on MTV called the Wade Robson Project. He's a dancer. He was a choreographer. He was working with Britney and Backstreet Boys, and the film covers this. And he had a big career. At one point, he was like the hottest choreographer in Hollywood, was making millions of dollars. And so maybe he's used to just performing in general, but his stories and the way he presented his information seemed to me to be somewhat of a performance. Now, I'll never know what happened with these kids, and Michael's not around to defend himself. But what I do know is that these parents fully believe their children. Wade Robson's mom fully believed this happened to him. Same thing with this James Safechuck. Their parents fully believed this happened. And I don't know how they can sleep at night. I don't know how they can sit back and say, I gave up my kid. That was the currency. For a free house, to live the lifestyle, I gave up my kid. I believe that I allowed another man to rape them. Over and over and over. There's nothing that's a greater violation in the world than a child who looks to a parent that's not there. Than a child who looks to a mother and a father for protection only to be betrayed. Shit just turns my stomach. I hate that I watched this documentary because I knew what it was going to be, and it was exactly what it was going to be. And at the end of it, you're left with nothing. You're left with nothing. There's no resolve. There's the worst of humanity, no matter how you view it. And sadly enough, there's a lot of parents that'll serve their kids up today just to try to, quote, be famous and have money. Look at the R. Kelly case, Someone says, yeah, my underage daughter was living with R. Kelly for 5 years. Well, how the fuck did that happen? Where are these parents? And then you find out profiting. That's where they are. Profiting. The shit people will do for money is disturbing. And part of the reason I didn't want to watch this documentary is because this podcast also ties in personal stories of my life. And I do have history in this arena as far as being a young boy. And being inappropriately touched. It wasn't by a male. There's actually two separate situations and two females. And it's not something that I'm willing to talk about. I'm not there. As far as details go, I'm not there. And I don't know that I ever will be. But what I can say is, when things happen to you as a child, you unfortunately think it's all about you. You think you're the cause or the reason. All I can just say is that if you're a parent, your kids need you, man. Be that shield. When you have a child, you lose the right to only care about you or to care about yourself first. You got to care about that child. Especially, when they're that young. Children don't know anything. Yeah, you just got to be there. You got to be there. Anyways, I'm not trying to make this a really dark podcast. I just finished watching this film and it's fucking disturbing. Anyways, I don't even know how to end this other than to say, oh man, I don't know why anybody would want to watch this documentary. It's just super, super dark. It's super graphic. There's so many questions that can never be answered, and it ends in a way that is really painful. So, yeah, that's Neverland. And all I could say is that if you're a parent out there, it is a gift and a blessing to be a parent. I guess my hope is that we could all look at what happens when somebody pushes, a child to be a thing and not a child. And that's what happened to Michael Jackson, is he was pushed to be this money-making, dancing, singing thing. And that's what he became. A creation. And slowly but surely, it appears as though the humanity was just beaten out of him. But that's not a license to go on and hurt other people and use money, power, and influence to live a lifestyle that is simply not okay. And if Michael didn't do any of this stuff, then someone should have, made it clear to him that he was certainly living his life in a way that appeared as though he did. Love your kids, protect them. There's no hidden moral to this story. Love your kids, protect them. They need you. So thank you guys for listening to this episode of the In a Crowded Room podcast. I will be back tomorrow with more. I also want to thank you guys. There was some more donations that came in. That means so much to me to have your support and that you guys want to hear my real feelings and thoughts about things without having to worry about corporate shit. Because that's not why I started this. So thank you guys. I will be back tomorrow with more. All the best.